Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host, and we're going to be talking about creating impact using animated trailers. So, animation has been connecting people to characters across the world for generations. With animated game trailers rising to prevalence in the indie game community, we're taking a look at the role they play as well as some of the outcomes they encourage. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey, everybody, and we're back. And today with us, I have Carlos Gaxiola. Carlos, how's it going, man? And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's a great pleasure to be here, my friend. It has been a blast after GDC that we met each other. So yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. It's a great honor.
Of course, man. Well, I mean, there's lots of things that we're going to talk about here today. But first and foremost, before we do, Carlos here is the CEO at Demente Animation Studios. And that's a big part of what we're going to be talking about. Not necessarily his company, a little bit, obviously, but more about what they're doing and cool things that are going on with that. But in addition to that, he's also an active member of the Creative Industries Association and an LXIA member. Now, if you don't mind, could you share with us a little bit what does being a member of that group consist of, or what is that organization?
Yeah, that's Latin in animation, Latinx in animation, Latinos in animation.
Okay,
and it's
nice.
It's an organization that it's run by some friends in LA, like Magdiela Duhamel, and it was created at the beginning. I think it was for Edward James Olmos, supporting the organization. It's much more for helping all the Latino in thriving in animation in North America mostly. So yeah, we're part of that organization too. It is amazing because it's a great community helping us to have a better conditions of work in America. And for us being a studio, it's very good to be aware of all the things that are happening and help the community to get better conditions, better payments, everything. So it's a great organization to be part.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and really appreciate you sharing more about that, because it's good to hear about those types of organizations that are really helping, different groups and different types of people out there to really make it like level out the playing field, if you will.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to that, though, you also have some pretty cool things in terms of acknowledgments and things like that. For example, 2 Telly Awards, which is, pretty awesome and everything. And this relates, I'm sure, to some of the clients that you've worked with. And I mean, we're talking about some well-recognized names here, folks, which is everything from like WB, Cartoon Network, Sesame Studios, Moonbug, Wild Brain, Discovery Kids, Mattel, Marvel, and this one is really interesting, Strange Scaffold. And for those of you who are probably like, hey, I know Strange Scaffold, or you probably do because it's Xavier Nelson Jr.'s company. And he was also appeared recently on our episode 300. But you're doing work with them too, which is really exciting stuff. So it's like so many cool different brands and companies that you're working with, have worked with. And I think it just says a lot about the quality of your work and everything. So again, just a little I'm messing up my words here. A fun little introduction to Carlos here. And but before we get into the meat of our conversation, because I know we really want to get there, I want to put you through the Q-Box round because I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. So with that said, are you ready for the Q-Box round?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So what's the most helpful or impactful advice you've ever received?
Well, definitely, I think we have been very lucky. We have so many friends in the industry from different CEOs for another animation studios. I have great friends at Riot Games, Sony Animation, executives, producers at Pixar. But I think one of the biggest advices we had in the past was try to don't put all the eggs in the same basket. I don't know if it's the same in United States, but it's about how can you diversify in your services and in your client base. So that's something we have been doing here in our studio. Try to diversify, and to be honest, that maybe it's the best decision we have been, or a philosophy that we have been trying to follow, because that led us to start working on video game industry with these crazy times we're experiencing on the entertainment side. That led us to diversify more. Don't put all the eggs in the same basket. So
Yeah.
And that's why we are here today. I'm very happy to having taken that decision. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
one of the best advices that we have received.
Diversify.
Definitely.
Love it. All right. What's one habit you have that has contributed to your success?
Well, to be honest, I think always work hard. Stay humble, and being like you haven't gotten anything until today. It is some of our philosophy. It has been giving us great results, and I think a lot of people has noted the way we're working here in Mexico. It's not easy because we're not a lot of Mexican animation studios, but maybe that's the key that for a lot of doors has opened to us.
Yeah. No, I love it. In truer words, and like, because you put in the work, you're going to get the results, but at the same time, staying humble along that way is so good. So no, great one right there. And then last but not least, and the staple here on the show is, what game are you playing now?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, I have been so busy here running the studio that I haven't had the chance to play recently. But it is funny because some of my guilty pleasures maybe is watching my 15-year-old kid. One of my kids, he's 15 years old, and he's always playing, and I really enjoy watching him playing video games like Cuphead, Valorant, or Hollow Knight. It is great. But in my times, I used to enjoy a lot games like classic games like Lolo, Bomberman,
Those are great.
Resident Evil,
Yep.
and more recent. I'm talking about mobile games. I'm a huge fan of Monument Valley kind of games. But yeah, that's that's my answer. I am not having enough time to play on these days. But if I play, I definitely will play with my kid one of these games.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you for sharing that. And man, like Lolo, like that's been forever since I played that, but that's such a good one. Cool. Well, really appreciate you diving in a little bit more and sharing more about yourself and everything. But now we're here to get to the meat of this discussion, which is creating impact using animated trailers for games. So to kind of kick things off here, I'm just curious, why do you think animated trailers are starting to trend in the indie spaces now?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I feel that in the past, maybe the trailers start to be focused more on the AAA games, but I think little by little we have become very popular in indie games too, because we have seen a very positive results when they are made. Like a very good response from the markets. More playing are downloading their games. So and more community also are having increasing the hype when seeing the trailers. And this is where our studios like us in Demente are joining to the game, because we are creating high quality animation adapting to the budgets of the indie video games. So I feel like it's very visual storytelling. Like animated trailers allow developers to tell a story in a visually compelling way that can capture the attention of viewers and convey the game's tone and themes. But also, it's cost effective now. For us, it's affordable now for indie video games to create their own trailer, and it also has a lot of impact. Overall, animated trailers offer indie game developers a cost-effective and versatile way to market their games. The trailers are a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool, and they are capture the attention of potential players. So I think that's the main reason that it's much more popular.
Yeah, I mean, you called out to a couple interesting things there, but I kind of boiled it down to being essentially more accessible. I mean, if you were to look back over time, a period of time or whatever, it was probably a lot more challenging to get access to those types of tools, resources, companies, especially, and like you're saying, from a cost-effective standpoint, and more. And there's probably a lot more availability and all these other factors. And not only that, it just can really increase the level or quality of the work that's being done without going crazy with cutscenes, because we all know how long those can take, and making whole cinematic trailers of cutscenes. It's just, I know some of you are probably thinking that's a big headache for a variety of reasons, but at least with the animation, even though way more accessible in so many things, and still able to deliver some impact there for sure. So knowing that, then I want to kind of go into a little bit more of animation itself and some of kind of the feeling behind that. So I'm curious, like, what are some specific ways that animation can convey a message to an audience? Because sometimes that could be a little bit challenging too, but what are some great ways that can be done?
Yeah, definitely. Thinking about these questions, I feel, and I think that animation, it's an art. Like Guillermo del Toro said recently, it's a genre. So using all the storytelling skills and the correct technique of animation, you will not only communicate a message, you will tell your story to your audience. So for me, I think story is the king. Having a great script, a great story to tell on the trailer, a short story is the king. After that, having appealing characters design, great characters developed. Also, the color, the acting of the animation, the movement, the gesture, and also great VFX are part of all these elements that can be, to deliver a message, to tell a story to our audience. So for me, it's maybe a mix of all these things together that is going to give us great results for sure.
Okay, so it's really about then, even though, let's say, because I know sometimes, and we'll get into this a little bit more, that the art style and everything is in line with, let's say, what's in game, but it might not be like identical, obviously, right? But so it's those other elements that you can take from the game, whether it's certain elements of the story or characteristics, and then could probably amplify or show those a little bit better through the animation. Is that like one good way of kind of showcasing that and why it can convey these messages and stories so well to the audience?
Yeah, definitely. A good example that I like to use is that, like, when you are playing a a gem puzzle game that it's not having, it's like aligning gems or aligning candies. The story is it's important, but also what are other elements you can bring to create the story to be appealing. I think that's part of the key, and I agree. I totally agree with you on it is our job to amplify or potentialize all the extra elements that will boost your trailer. So yeah, definitely that's part of the important ingredients.
Yeah, no, and you bring up an interesting point there too. Is like you're to some extent really kind of selling what that perceived experience is, and just in a different way. So if you're amplifying these things, and let's say that the trailer, the animation is really promoting a feeling of confidence or excitement or wonder, by emphasizing those things, it can maybe help instill these and make this strong impression on someone, and then that feeling essentially gets carried right over into the gameplay itself. Just as long as those things are still obviously present in the mechanics and the gameplay and everything, but it sounds like that's like another way of going about doing that to really make that strong impression impactful. So when people play the game, it's like kind of continuing that experience from that first initial impression from that animation.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that in mind, I'm also curious in terms of like, what ways do you think animated trailers drive excitement for players? I mean, we touched upon, I think, a little bit, but how else do you think animation can really get people excited?
Yeah, for sure. I think the visual appeal. Animated trailers are often visually stunning with high quality graphics and animation that are designing to capture the viewer's attention. So this can create excitement and anticipation for the game by showcasing, it's the unique art style and also the storytelling, as I mentioned. That's going to be the part that is going to engage our viewers and create emotional investment in the game characters and the world of the video game, and this will create the excitement by building anticipation for the player to experience the story themselves, and also about the teasing, the gameplay. It's super important. The gameplay mechanics and features of the game, giving players a taste of what to expect from the game, and the core of the game. So we can create excitement by building anticipation for players to explore the game world and try out its unique features.
Yeah.
So gameplay is also super important here. And yeah, building the hype with creating all the sense of excitement among the fans and potential players. This can help to generate all the buzz that we need for the game and increase the chances of becoming a commercial successful. So yeah, I think definitely.
So you called out for something that is really interesting for me, and it's what you were saying, like really building up the anticipation, because I have seen there's various different ways that can be done with, let's say using gameplay, but sometimes that can be really challenging to do. So like what you said before is like really showcasing that narrative. And I'm guessing too that like the narrative in certain cases doesn't always necessarily have to be a direct narrative from a game, because not all games really have a very story or story driven, right? But there still can be a narrative that is conveyed in a trailer in terms of building up that anticipation and everything else. And I think that's what you were alluding to before a little bit, is like, hey, this is something that we could really showcase to these audiences, really building up this, and by doing so with anticipation. And I think that's just like has a natural organic story element to it, even though it might not be directly a story that the game has to convey, right? So I love that you said that too, because that's another characteristic I think we don't necessarily think about as, hey, this is how animation can do something else in terms of really driving that anticipation and excitement. The other thing I thought was really cool as you were talking and sharing that was, if you think about it, like there's so much emphasis and focus that goes on key art in terms of how the game is shown. And a lot of times the key art is some type of like drawing, right? In a lot of cases, right? If not the majority. But then now it's almost like animation trailers are basically an extension of your key art. So like it's really, I just started making this connection, even though it might seem pretty obvious, but it's just like, it almost makes sense then that animation would be a better way to go than maybe what we typically see with, AAA and all those cutscenes and everything. I mean, if they're already in game, it makes sense that they reuse those assets, right? But what do you think about that in terms of the animation becoming a key art or an extension of the key art?
Definitely. And yeah, well, on some cases, we have been participated in projects that we are helping developing also that key art, which is very important, or complement that key art, or also creating, or recreating or reshaping the main characters in a different style, which is very cool too. So, and that's something that is happening with El Paso Elsewhere, the project that we're participating now. We're about to deliver, and it's looking amazing. I'm sure you're gonna love it once it's online. But it's a very enjoyable process, for us, having all the people in concept art and getting involved from the beginning of the project and have the chance. Depends. It's great when you have the opportunity to propose and have the developer side very receptive and open to see how can you boost the message or making it even bigger, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the key art it's a very important process, but it is good that now we have a lot of chances to propose. You don't need to have exactly the same key art on the video game than on the trailer. You have some room to potentialize or making even better, and that's the step or the goal we always want to reach.
Yeah, no, and it's a great point too, because I know on the show here before I've talked a lot about like the importance of aligning things, right? Like making sure that like the key art aligns with your gameplay to an extent, but at the same time, I mean, there's definitely some flexibility in terms of adding other elements of creativity, where even if those feelings and other things that are still aligned, that's still really important. It doesn't have to be like identical to your key art, to the animation, right? As long as those, like you said, those things are properly conveyed and those feelings and that sense of excitement and anticipation, then it still aligns in terms of the whole grand scheme of things. So cool. I love that you pointed that out, because I think sometimes we can get caught up in like, oh, we really need to make sure this is completely in line. And it's like, yes, it is, but it's not like verbatim. It's not always literal.
Yeah, well, and I feel like this is the great discoveries we are doing on the indie video game industry. It is always much more flexible and open to these proposals, and yeah, it is part of sometimes it's great to arrive to a project that it's on the early development, because maybe these things you're proposing has the chance to be also in the game or being considered to have a better product at the end. So I think this is one of the things that we more enjoy on the process, to participate and help another companies or developers to boost their quality on what they are doing. Because sometimes they don't have the artistic skills, and they have a great project in mind. But sometimes it's great to participate or be part of that process and end up with a better project in general, not only for the trader. So
right. Exactly. It's really about looking at like how can you increase that like that quality overall. It's not just in one area, because it's like if you have a high quality trailer versus, let's say, a not high quality trailer, the high quality trailer overall is going to reflect the product better. And plus, it probably would carry over too. In not every case, but in a majority, that mindset I think is a good one to have. Now, we talked a lot about kind of like, hey, this is some cool things that can happen with animation, right? But at the same time, there's a lot going around, and I'm a proponent and advocate of this too, in terms of like the importance of actually showing gameplay. Hey, animations are cool and everything, but showing the gameplay ultimately is what players are looking for. So with that in mind, what would you say is a good balance for both like animated and gameplay focus in trailers? Like,
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And to be honest, I don't think there is a rule for that. I feel that there are games that are 25% gameplay and 75% new animation, and others are completely the other way, the opposite. But I think it's important to find a good balance between the animation and the gameplay. Focusing the trailers, because it's essential for creating an effective and engaging marketing tool. So I would love to share some tips on trying to achieve this balance. But again, every case is different.
Yep.
And it will be, and for us, it will be much more, like a Taylor Swift or a Taylor suite on every case. But these are only recommendations. So in the showcase, the game play mechanics is the heart of the video game, and it's the main purpose of this tool, of the trailer, of this marketing tool. So it's essential to show it, right? Including the gameplay footage that will help players to get a better understanding of the game mechanics, the pace, and its level of challenge of the video game. And as we said, it will help build anticipation for the players and try to game the game themselves. So it's very important. So also use the animation to enhance the story. So animation sequences can be used to convey the story and the characters in a visually compelling way that can help create an emotional connection between the players and the game's world, and build the anticipation for the game's release. So use animation strategically and enhance the trailer overall impact, and showcase the game's unique themselves and style. So also another important point will be the target, the audience. A trailer is a marketing tool, as we mentioned, and it was designed to generate the interest and excitement for the game. So it should be short. It should be straight to the point. And ideally, the trailers are no longer than 2-3 minutes. Will showcase the most exciting and engaging part of the game. And at the end, I always recommend have a good balance, and maybe a good balance is an equal measure, like 50% gameplay, 50% new animation. I feel that it's a good amount, if I need to answer your question. But it is also important to show the game's core mechanics mostly.
Yeah. And you're right. Yeah, I mean, you kind of ended there saying like, hey, sure, 50-50 if you need an exact answer, but at the same time, you said it's case by case. There's a lot of other factors that come up into to play in terms of like approach, style, technique, who's the audience, like so many other things that are really important to consider when really nailing down what is that right balance. So like I'm just curious though, and I might put you on the spot a little bit, but I think we're gonna have fun with this actually. So in terms of thinking about as you were talking about this, I got some of my gears running in my head in terms of like, well, how, because some people might be looking for an answer in terms of like, well, how would this look like, right? Like say animation gameplay, or maybe it's first part is only animation, second part is only gameplay, right? Like there's any number of ways you can do this, and there's right. But let's just, for some quick examples, let's say. And I'm going to break this down into kind of like, keep for time and simplicity's sake, let's say 3 sections. Let's think of our main story arc here. You have your hook, you have your buildup, and then you have your climax, right? So here are these 3 sections that we're going to work with. So what's one way and again, there's many ways, but what's one way we can start? What do you think? So let's, for our hook, you think it's better to lead in with gameplay? And again, no one's right here, guys. We're just like, I'm really putting Carlos on the spot here, and I figured do something different that would be fun. So for our hook, what do you think would be good to lead with, animation or gameplay?
Yeah, I personally think that starting with animation to create the anticipation is good. Trying to catch the attention with something that it's not in the gameplay it's a good strategy. Also, bringing something that it's really eye-catching, of course, we're using animation to improve what we have on the gameplay. So having really appealing intro of the trailer, I think it's a winning formula.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think maybe start with animation. It's good strategy. Then showing some gameplay. And of course, you can start switching between gameplay, and it depends. To be honest, it depends on the project, but we can showcase. I don't know if we're focusing on on a game that has the character has special powers. We could make a special close up of the character with one of the magics or the effects, and we can see much more detail. That's the kind of thing that will improve and create, all this hype for playing the game. But I think having a good intro of animation, then some gameplay, then some details of the features of the video games in animation, something that they are not going to see on the gameplay, but keep showing the gameplay and close with maybe a nice touch of animation at the end, it will be great. So it's about mixing it and also having these cuts to don't make it boring. It should be very dynamic, and it will be changing from animation to the gameplay in several times. But I think that could be like a general formula.
Yes,
for showing for creating a trailer, maybe. But again, it depends.
Exactly.
Again, if we are doing the puzzle game trailer, it's another strategy, and we can do it differently. And our work will be always to boost the visuals and create the hype on the target.
Yeah. And no, I'm thank you for humoring me and going through that process too, because it was really cool to kind of like, even like, not necessarily like nothing's pinpointed here where we were using Post-it notes here, but like leading in with like that again. I think a focus here for our discussion today is that anticipation. Kicking off with some of that animation, going into gameplay, and then interchanging it, and plus, like Tia said, it's case by case. Like how you interchange that could vary. Like let's say if it's a very emotional drama-based game, I guess, like very story narrative. Maybe there's less animation sequences or longer sequences. Like the pacing of the whole trailer now is going to be very different. Whereas if it's like a Rock'em Sock'em like platformer or something, it might be interspliced a lot, or quick shots of those of gameplay sequences, but then you go to that great example, by the way, you shared, where it's like, oh, this character has a special ability, they're powering up. We're going to show that in the animation, and then show all the different ways after in game how in game you could use that special ability or others and stuff. I mean, just talking about this is actually getting me excited, and like, wow, there's so many different ways that this could be done in trailers and such. So just really cool stuff. And again, thank you for those examples, because I think it provides a little bit more insight in terms of, hey, how could this kind of look for my project, right? So absolutely love it. Now, in light of this, though, I'm also thinking too, like, kind of shifting things a little bit, but like, what advice would you give to, let's say, animators who kind of want to work with the game developers? And also vice versa, like, what's advice for indie developers who want to hire animators? Like, what are some good ways to go about these things if you're an animator or indie developer?
Yeah, for sure. Well, here in our studio, we have a constant approach for a lot of students and just graduated animators. We are very lucky. We're here located in Jalisco, Mexico, and here on our state we have more than 15 universities teaching animation. So I feel that's the key that Jalisco is setting as the animation hub in Mexico. But yeah, there's a lot of people that it's always applying with us, and some of the advices we have for the animators. Actually, this tomorrow I will receive one of the university's groups in the studio to showcase the studio and show them our demo reel and talk a little bit, inspire, of course, new generations. But I always, and this is part of that I will talk tomorrow, but building a strong portfolio for animators, it's going to be much more building a strong portfolio. As an animator, your portfolio, it's your business card. So it's essential to create a strong portfolio that showcases your skills, but also you need to be sure that include the examples of what you consider your specialty. If you are much more into the modeling, into the rigging, into the concept art, into the animation, or creating environments, locations, backgrounds, VFX, or your skill it's animation in 3D or 2D. That's something that I always mention to the new generations, that try to focus and be really, really good in something, because now everything is a specialty. So of course, sometimes we need generalistic talent, but I think it's a good idea to showcase your specialty, and also any experience of working in another game trailer projects. Also, I always recommend to stay up to date with all the industry trends. In the gaming industry, everything it's evolving all the time, and maybe in all the industries, but there's constant evolution. So it's very important to be update with all the latest trends and technologies and software. So that's something that they should be aware. And also, collaboration, it's the key. Try to collaborate as much as possible with another game developers. The networking is super important, and collaborate and networking are hand to hand. So it is important for everyone to first to jump into the industry. I'm sure that it's going to need some collaboration or helping without payment sometimes to another small developers. it is a good idea if you're going to learn something and it's going to help you to keep focusing in your main goal. So yeah, that's something that it's very common. And yeah, being open to feedback is
Yeah.
always great for any animator, artist, and any person in the world. Be open to feedback. This is a collaborative process, so it's essential to be open to feedback and constructive criticism. And yeah, it's that's my advices for
Yeah.
animators.
And I really want to call out too that I loved how you said, because when we think about, let's say, animation as a whole, we kind of think of it as one thing, right? It's this one final entity. We see it on television, we see it in trailers, but like you said, play to your strengths. And you just outlined like several different areas that people could be really strong or good at. And yes, sometimes there's general characteristics and general things that would be great, but at the same time, playing to your strengths and stuff. I mean, this is something we've discussed on the show before in different capacities, contexts, and such. But again, I think that's just sound advice there, because trying to do everything really well probably means you're not going to do something that comes out very good. Because again, it's like, it can happen. It's not that it's impossible, but playing to your strengths is probably a better way. And I think that's a good point to kind of lead into the second part of that question too, is simply like, hey, as an indie developer, who are you going to? What kind of questions are you asking? Especially like, for the style you're looking for, are you talking to someone in terms of an animator that is really playing to their strengths or not? And these are probably good things to consider. But what else would you say are good things for indie developers or studios to think about when looking to work with animators?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I also prepare some points here to mention for indie developers that sometimes are our clients also. I think something very important is to know what you're looking for. Prepare as much as you can for your, with visual references to show it as examples of what are you looking for. If it's a trailer, if you are needing, I don't know, animation for in-game or any 3D models to create props, assets, whatever you're needing, try to be sure that knowing what are you looking for, it's very important. After that, checking your animators or checking your vendors carefully. It's another advice or another tip that I can share. When reviewing the studios or collaborators, take the time to check each demo reel that works for your needs, and look for examples of animation that this studio or this particular animator has created before, to see if you think it's gonna work on your project. So if you can find similar animation style than what you're looking for, it's important. And also, sometimes our studios are able to create tests for any project, for the client be sure that we're able to manage the animation style they are looking for, or the key art they are looking for. So yeah, definitely, it's another good thing to consider. And then after that, of course, good communication, always is the best. If the project needs to change the scope at certain point, it's important to both sides need to be open to restructure any project. So communication is the key. And always try to create the best working relationship with any artist, animator, or any studio. It's the key for sure. It's the most important part here to keep moving forward on the business, for sure.
Yeah, man. The three main things I got out of that, all of which was really good, but was like like you said, know your vision. That's so important because knowing your vision is therefore going to help you communicate that vision. How do you properly communicate, set those expectations, and then the communication relates right into the whole relationship aspect of it. And those things really go hand in hand, and it just makes complete sense why. And again, and it's so funny because these things are all like imperative to everything that's done in game development, right? So again, it's like, sorry, making some quick reference here to, ironically, and maybe not so much, Zalavir's podcast where it talks about your product is in your process. And here we are saying, like, here are the tips Carlos is giving in terms of what to look for and when working with animators. And it's essentially a process of knowing your vision and communicating and all these other things. We're talking about animation, but it can really apply everywhere. So I just love how universal, but how specific these things can apply. And again, such great examples there in terms of how do you work with animators and what's a good way to go about doing that. So thank you so much. Well, we're coming up on time here. And of course, before I go, I'd love for you to, I know you shared some already, but if there are any other high level tips or suggestions you would like to share to our listeners today, what would those be?
Yeah, well, for me, in terms of suggestions, definitely, I think the ones where we mentioned before are the main ones. But build a positive working relation with everyone. In game developing, collaborative processes, everything, and it's important to build a positive working relation with your animator, with your vendor, with your programmers, everything. So this means being open to feedback, communicating clearly and regularly, treating them with respect and professionalism. I think that will be my biggest suggestion here. And again, all the communication, it's important. It's very important, definitely. To the animator or the studio you're hiring. Be as much as specific as you can about your needs, and including the deadlines, the style of animation, the specific requirements of any project. So yeah, definitely that will be my biggest suggestions here. And yeah, definitely I think that will be on my side. That some of the things that I can suggest for
Sweet.
sure.
Well, really appreciate that. And again, can't thank you enough for being on the show today. But before we depart, how can people reach out to you, Carlos? How can they connect, find out more about you, Demente? What are some links, information? How do we get in touch?
For sure. Our webpage is demente.studio. And that's it.
Okay. And that's
really nice.
It's really short
nice.
and sweet. And that's DEMENTE. A lot of E's there, folks. But again, it'll be in the show notes. So, but you said demente.studio. Very short and sweet. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's our webpage. That will lead us to our demo reel. I am at LinkedIn as Carlos Gaxiola. So I know my last name is hard. It's Gaxiola. So yeah, I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. And also our studio, the Demente Animation Studio, it's on LinkedIn. For us, LinkedIn is the social network that it's working best in terms of business, for sure. But also we have Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, we'll happy to say hello there. And yeah, happy to contribute more, or any doubt or anything that you need. I will happy to connect there.
All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah, Carlos, thank you so much. And again, if you want to connect, just go to dementes.studio for the website. That's one great way to connect with Carlos. And also just check out his LinkedIn page, whether it's the studios or his directly, another great way to get in touch. So Carlos, thank you so much for being here today. And it was really a pleasure having you and talking more about how to create some impact with animated trailers.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It was a great pleasure to see you again. I hope to be in touch soon. So yeah, let's do it. And thank you very much for your invitation, my friend. A big hug for you.
Thanks, of course. Same back at you.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.